Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at Proverbs chapter 21 in our continuing study of the book of Proverbs. We are still in that section, chapters 10 through 24, Proverbs of Solomon, and we subdivided that into three groups. We're in the middle group, living the wise life. We're getting close to the end of that. And we begin verse 21. The king's heart is like channels of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he wishes. This is why you ought to pray for your rulers, not only so that they will be successful, of course, you want that to happen, but also that the Lord will turn their heart in the way He wants it to happen. Notice the Lord theme. He turns it wherever He wishes. So God directs the heart. Verse 2 Every man's way is right in his own ways, but the Lord, notice the Lord theme, but the Lord weighs the hearts. And then again, verse 3 to do righteousness and justice is desired by the Lord more than sacrifice. So the Proverbs talk oftentimes about the Lord's dealings in our lives, about our way versus the Lord's way. He has a much better perspective on our lives than we do. Um, and that He calls us to do righteousness and justice. Um, we've often said that Proverbs are not just street smarts, they are that. They give us wisdom, but they also give us an ethical component to wisdom, that doing right and being just, that's wise because it's desired by the Lord. And notice more than sacrifice. That's something we saw all through the prophets. So he weighs the hearts, God judges the hearts, and then God wants righteousness. Verse 4 haughty eyes and a proud heart, the lamp of the wicked is sin. Now, this one's a little tough. If you look at the King James Version, it says a high look and a proud heart. That first part is the same. The plowing of the wicked is sin. Notice the lamp versus the plowing of the wicked. That's not just an old translation. The New International Version renders it very similarly. The haughty eyes and a proud heart, the unplowed field of the wicked produce sin. So you have two very different translations. What's the explanation for this? Well, the Hebrew word near can be rendered one of two ways. It's sort of like our word trunk. You know, a trunk can be the center part of a tree, or the back of your car, or something you pack as your suitcase, or the proboscis of an elephant. Here, near can either refer to a lamp or to a field that has not been plowed or planted, a field that we would call fallow. In other words, you just leave the field alone, and you typically do this for a year or so, just to let it regain its nutrients. And so the same term can refer to either thing. Now, if we look at some examples where the same term is used, 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 36, where God is saying that my servant David may have a lamp always, lamp. It's not that he might have a fallow field always before me in Jerusalem. Likewise, 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 4, the Lord his God gave him a lamp in Jerusalem, same sort of idea as was in that previous verse. But here in the Proverbs, back in chapter 13, verse 23, we saw abundant food is in the fallow ground of the poor. It is swept away by injustice. Because of the food reference, in that case, we translated it, and the New American Standard even translated it fallow ground. Didn't translate it lamp because that would not have fit the context. So the question is, what fits the context here? Is it haughty eyes and a proud heart, the lamp, or the fallow ground? I can understand why the New American Standard moved away from both the King James and NIV hadn't been translated yet, um, to say maybe it's not the fallow ground. Maybe that lamp idea, after all, the eyes and the heart, that seems to fit that. We continue to verse 5. The plans of the diligent lead surely to advantage, but everyone who is hasty, notice the contrast here, the diligent, not the diligent versus the slacker, the lazy person, but in this case, the diligent versus the hasty. Sometimes there are some things that deserve to be done slowly. Let's say it that way, where in fact, we have an old English proverb that says, haste makes waste. And sometimes that's true. Um, it depends on the circumstance. I was back with the fire department in my younger years, and I had a motto: if we can put this fire out in 5 minutes instead of 5 hours, that's going to be a good thing. So we did try to haste, but not so much as to make mistakes. So this is the value of careful planning. Verse 6, the acquisition of treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor, the pursuit of death. The point here is the transitory quality of ill-gotten gains, notice by a lying tongue. And it's described as a fleeting vapor. The Hebrew word there, hevel. Hevel is the same word that we translated vanity of vanities over in Ecclesiastes. It also happens to be used as a name back in Genesis chapter 4, where you had Cain and Havel. We say Abel. Same word here. And so notice getting things by lying for them, ill-gotten gains, you may get them for a brief time, but actually what you're pursuing, what you're getting is death. Verse 7, the violence of the wicked will drag them away because they refuse to act with justice. And then the way of a guilty man is crooked, but as for the pure, his conduct is upright. And so notice um, it's picturing some bad things. You have the crooked versus the upright, but you're seeing the way of the wicked, the way of a guilty man. Verse 9, it is better to live in a corner of a roof than a house shared with a contentious woman. That almost speaks for itself. This contentious woman, and she'll be back in just a few verses. We'll see and hear her again in verse 19. The picture of the corner of a roof, of course, where I live in South Florida, that nobody lives in a corner of a roof, but actually the roofs were used as sort of the maybe the utility room or things like that. They were actually useful, and they would often have a parapet. In fact, they were commanded if it had access to the roof, you were supposed to have a parapet so nobody would fall off by mistake. And the point is not quite so esoteric when we see it in light of the practices of the ancient world. Now, we said that's going to be repeated again a number of verses later, verse 24, excuse me. Verse 10, the soul of the wicked desires evil. His neighbor finds no favor in his eyes. So we're going to be seeing this the way of the wicked, the soul of the wicked. Verse 11, when the scoffer is punished, the naive become wise. But when the wise is instructed, he receives knowledge. Notice there's a contrast there between the way the scoffer, he's punished, and even the people that aren't too bright become wise. But when the wise is instructed, he receives knowledge. The wise person doesn't have to be punished in order to get the point. Verse 12, the righteous one considers the house of the wicked, turning the wicked to ruin. And so, how much better is it instead of being punished and suffering the consequences of your action, of your negative actions? How much better is it to learn from someone else's mistakes? That hurts a lot less. Verse 13, he who shuts his ear to the cry of the poor, and we're going to have a judgment theme here, he who shuts his ear to the cry of the poor will also cry himself and not be answered. Um, so here's someone who he's got some things, and he hears the needs of the poor, and he doesn't want to hear it. Well, nobody's going to listen to him, and not just other people, but the Lord's not going to listen to him, and that's the point that's being made here. So the cry of the poor, he's going to cry himself. Verse 14, a gift in secret subdues anger, and a bribe in the bosom strong wrath. Now, it's not necessarily saying that's what we ought to do, but that this is just wisdom. A gift in secret. When somebody's angry at you, give them a gift. It's sort of um, a propitiatory offering. That's actually By the way, we have a propitiatory offering. We have a gift. It wasn't really in secret, but we have a gift that was made on our behalf. The cross was a gift on our behalf, where Jesus took upon himself um, our just penalty and gives gifts to us. And notice a bribe in the bosom, strong wrath. Verse 15, the exercise of justice is joy for the righteous, but it is terror to the workers of iniquity. So notice joy versus terror, um, judgment themes, and justice is good. Unless you're the one who's doing wrong, then you're thinking, I don't want to see justice, but it will take place. Verse 16, a man who wanders from the way of understanding, and here's the picture of the wanderer, what we call sometimes the prodigal. Actually, the word prodigal doesn't have quite that meaning, but we use it that way. A man who wanders from the way of understanding will rest in the assembly of the dead. He who loves pleasure will become a poor man. If he's loving pleasure to the point where he never gets anything accomplished, he's going to see any wealth that he has is going to go down the tubes. Verse 7, latter part of verse 17, another way of saying that, he who loves wine and oil will not become rich. If you're all about the pleasures of life, the luxuries, um, then and not about working for them, then they can disappear. Living rich is not a good thing if you're not rich, and even if you are wealthy, it can go in. Money can go in a hurry. It has a way of speaking to us. It says, "So long, see you later," and away it goes. So under the prodigal, the wicked is a ransom for the righteous, and the treacherous is in the place of the upright. Notice in the place of the upright, the tahat. Um, uh, Literally, we usually translate that below, although I think this is probably a little bit of a figure of speech. This is seen in the King James Version, which says, the wicked shall be a ransom for the righteous, and the transgressor for the upright. They're trying to get the same idea across. Um, or the New English translation, the wicked becomes a ransom for the righteous. Notice all the translations rendered that first line the same. And the faithless are taken in the place of the upright. Um, that is, the wicked, that, that goes downhill, and soon they're replaced. They come under that, as it were. Verse 20, there is precious treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise. So here we're going to see a picture of the wise, but a foolish man swallows it up. The wise holds on to his treasure. He doesn't spend it all in one place. What's the old English proverb? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Same sort of idea here. Versus a foolish man who swallows it up and then it's gone. Verse 21, he who pursues righteousness and loyalty finds life. You notice he finds life, righteousness, and honor. And so he who pursues it, he finds those things. Verse 22, a wise man scales the city of the mighty and brings down the stronghold in which they trust. And so notice the foolish man, in this case, the mighty is the one that's overcome by wisdom. Even though he's stronger, um, I used to tell my firefighters, think smart, not hard. Um, if there's an easier way and it's safe, if there's an easier way and it accomplishes the same thing or even better, then do it. Verse 19, we said this was coming with the contentious and vexing woman. It's better to live in a desert land than with a contentious and vexing woman. We saw that back in verse 9. It's better to live on the corner of a housetop, and now it's better to live in a desert land, a dry place. Um, Let me just say, wives can make your lives wonderful, or they can make your lives miserable. And I think the point is, let me just say, if you're a woman, don't be a contentious and vexing woman. But if you're a man looking for a wife, remember this is addressed largely to the son of the writer, and so he's giving him wisdom on how to choose a wife. That theme will take us all the way to the very last chapter of the book of Proverbs, where we're going to see who I like to call the valiant woman, and it's a great picture. Verse 23, he who guards his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from trouble. So notice he guards his mouth. He guards his soul from trouble. Verse 24, proud, haughty, scoffer are his names, who acts with insolent pride. Again, that speech idea that runs over both of these proverbs. Verse 25, the desire of the sluggard puts him to death. Remember the sluggard, that's the lazy person. the, not the work, the desire of the sluggard puts him to death. For his hands refuse to work. All day long he is craving, while the righteous gives and does not hold back. Now, I entitled this section The Wicked, and I've classified the sluggard, not just the sluggard person, which not just the lazy person, which he is here in verses 25 and 26, but it's going to start a segment now, a continuing segment on different kinds of wickedness. And yes, laziness is a wickedness. It's described that way. So the desire of the sluggard puts him to death, or the term craving, by the way, uh, ta'avat, desire, craving, that works. And the only reason I mention it is because I'm going to see the same word, the desire of the sluggard, and then the craving, he's craving, basically the same word that's used for both of these. So notice you have the sluggard, he covets, he wants, but he won't work for it. He just wants. And so therefore, he never gets it. Whereas the righteous person gives, he doesn't hold back, and the Lord rewards him. It's not that just that he has to work really hard to get the things that he wants. He also works hard to give to others, and yet is rewarded in all sorts of ways. So you have the righteous, he gives, and he doesn't hold back. Verse 27, the sacrifice, and we're still in the wicked, the sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination. How much more when he brings it with evil intent? In other words, it's not that he does bad and then he repents and sacrifices, but how much more when even his good thing is in order to accomplish something bad, is something self-serving. Verse 28, a false witness will perish, but the man who listens to the truth will speak forever. Verse 29, a wicked man displays a bold face, but as for the upright, he makes his way sure. Have you ever known someone that could just lie to your face and they're just so brazen about it, and you look and you can't tell they're lying. After a while, you get to know if his lips are moving, he's lying. As for the way of the upright, he makes his way sure. Verse 30, there is no wisdom and no understanding and no counsel against the Lord. The horse is prepared for the day of battle, but victory belongs to the Lord. Now, I put this under the heading still of the wicked because it's those who were trying to go against the Lord, and yet, let me just put it this way, God wins in the end. That's the big idea both here. Actually, I think that's the big idea in the whole book of Proverbs. No, let me rephrase that. I think that's the big idea in the entire Bible. God wins. And it's not that you can get God on your side, it's that you need to get on God's side and and follow him in all things because victory does belong to him.